Hey y'all, this is part 2 of me interviewing me. Hope you get something out of it, answer some questions that you're thinking about. In my early 20s, I spent some time in another culture where I discovered there are other ways to do things that make perfect sense and work perfectly well, including how mattresses are put together. So when I started thinking about what would be the most comfortable in a rig, I was willing to experiment with lots of different materials. Eventually, I ended up with upholstery quality high density foam and a layer of anti-condensation. I call it frozen spaghetti. It allows air to flow under your mattress so you're not dealing with condensation. And that's a precursor to mold accumulating in your rig, which you do not want to deal with. I need quiet, so I use earplugs, which I did in Sticks and Bricks, just continue to do that in my rig. And I need dark in order to sleep. My body also needs that ability to lower its temperature a few degrees in order to fall asleep. So to accommodate those needs, I have WeatherTech window coverings that pretty much cover all the windows. There's usually a corner or two where some light will come through, and you find ways to deal with that. I also have USB fans that are blowing on my core, and that helps me do that lowering of the temperature so I can fall asleep. A sleep arrangement that's going to work for you is also pretty much mandatory before you get out on the road. And it's okay to try different things. You can try different kinds of mattresses. It doesn't matter what it costs because it's a huge investment in your well-being. So keep looking until you find what works. Getting rid of stuff can take years, but I was fortunate that prior to my making this decision about becoming a nomad, I had spent quite a few years downsizing, exploring intentional community, and just slowly getting rid of stuff and enjoying that freedom of that burden being no longer on my shoulders. I found that what was most difficult was the memorabilia and the memory stuff, the pictures, and that was the last thing that I dealt with. And I ended up using an app called PhotoMine to scan photos and to create files that I could look at later. And I do have a container, packing cube of things that I didn't want to let go of. Things from my son, little mementos from here and there that I do have with me, and I might keep them over time. The connection to them may lessen and I'll feel okay with letting them go. I don't have a storage unit. Everything I own is in my rig, and I like it that way. So start as soon as you can. If you can get to the place where you're breaking the bond of your stuff is who you are, the better. If you can afford the help of a professional organizer who will help you get rid of things and get them to the places that will benefit who might own them next, that's a big help. And I guess just chip away at it a little bit every day, as soon as you can, for as long as you can. The biggest difference for me between living in Sticks and Bricks and being in a rig on the road is the quality of the freedom and peace of mind. And the biggest part of that is withdrawing from the rat race of paid employment, especially for other people, working for other people. I'm not eliminating that possibility of working part-time or seasonally at some point in the future, but not having to force myself to participate in that anymore is one of the biggest joys and freedoms. My Social Security pretty much covers my budget that I've drawn up before and now that I'm actually living on the road. So I'm very fortunate in that regard. I know that's not the situation for everyone, but that's also peace of mind that I can do it. And then not needing to conform to other people's schedules. That's the biggest thing, I think, that I've noticed. I've been spending some time with people who are in sticks and bricks for a while. It was kind of jarring to bump into that and do my best to not get sucked up into that, and paying attention to when I need to spend time by myself, to do the nomad thing, even though I might be in a city around other people who are not doing that kind of thing. Making choices and making decisions that work for me. That's the overarching umbrella. When there's a stretch of bad weather, whether it's wind and sand or rain or cold or even heat, if you can't get anywhere that it's going to be better if you drive a couple hours, then you're going to have to deal with that on occasion. I do my best to pay attention to that through checking in with weather apps on a regular basis. And then once you know that that's going to be the case, stock up on food so you don't have to go out. When you get your toileting situation figured out, that's easy. You can do it inside your vehicle. And have things that make you feel good at hand. For me, it's books, and I prefer paper books, but I'll also read them online through a library. I prefer to utilize a public library and access ebooks and audiobooks through that portal. I also can play solitaire with a real deck of cards for hours. There's something soothing and rhythmic about that allows my mind to wander and process things, and I'll find that challenges or troubleshooting has been occurring during that time. Wow. And it's a win-win. I do have WeatherTech window rain guards and a complete door covering that has nylon and netting and ventilation. That's important when you're stuck inside. You need to be able to breathe. You need to have fresh air. Having the ability to get that ventilation is really important. One of my fondest memories is of going up to Neah Bay in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State and discovering the Indigenous Center there and the history that's been uncovered in the mudslide that had preserved evidence of their culture from a couple centuries ago, and it just blew my mind. I could have spent days there. Another great memory is seeing outside of the Red Canyon outside of Las Vegas. Someone had set up their entire drum set in the median between the directions of the highway and was just rocking it, playing to his heart's content. And I so wish I would have stopped and talked to him and maybe even filmed him. Just the look on his face and the spirit that he was playing with, that will stick with me forever. The sunsets and the sunrises in Nevada are stunning, and the people that I meet. Now going into my third year being a full-timer that I've met so far, and the ones that I'm gonna meet.